effects and the fallout from that Sarah Everard murder and the conviction of her killer and the sentencing yesterday. 6 months ago, it not just ended Sarah Everard's life, his actions, but also it sparked grief, anger, and also promises for the government to change things, to make women feel safer, be safer, and to have a better protected by the justice system.
But since Sarah's death, 80 women have allegedly been killed at the hands of men, which begs the question, what is being done to make society safer, and why is it taking so long? We're joined now by Sarah Reid, who is the leader of the Women's Equality Party, along with Labour MP Bel Ribeiro-Addy and former Met Chief Superintendent Parm Sandhu. Good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Parm Sandhu, if we can talk to you first as a former Met Chief Superintendent, I'm sure there is a huge amount of frustration, anger, shame for what has happened for Wayne Couzens, a serving police officer at the time, and what he did to Sarah Everard. But then when we hear those statistics that since Sarah's death, 80 women have allegedly been killed at the hands of men, there's even more questions in there. There's even more fear. What is your take on this? How have we got to this situation? You are a chief superintendent. You have worked in law enforcement for the majority of your life, and yet there seems to be this huge failing for women.
We need to build on the passion that is currently out there in relation to violence against women and girls. Sarah Everard's death was a tragic waste of a life. But what we need to do is we need to build on that, and looking forward, we shouldn't be seeing women as a demand on the police service. We should be trying to meet the needs of all women right across the country and making sure that every woman is safe and secure when they leave their homes. And I think what's happened in the past, the issue has been seen as a demand on policing. It shouldn't be. We should have units set up specifically to deal with violence against women and girls, specifically to make sure that no woman dies at the hands of a man ever again. And I think it's really important that at the moment we have got people on our side, women and men, and this is where we need to build on that strength of feeling, on that passion, to make sure that every woman is safe going forward.
Parm, I wonder, there are so many questions that people will have this morning when they see how many opportunities there seems to be to stop Wayne Couzens before he murdered Sarah Everard. Not only did he have this horrific nickname amongst his peers as the rapist, but he had also been accused of flashing. There was a previous incident in February where his car was involved in a situation that was indecent exposure that didn't seem to be investigated properly. The police are there to protect us, to investigate all of these things, and yet here was one of their own that was able, seemingly, to pass through all of that situation without being investigated. What's your thoughts on that as a former police officer yourself? Has he been given too much room because he was a police officer by his peers, by his colleagues?
I'm actually appalled and disgusted by the fact that he came to notice back in 2015, yet in 2018, he was recruited for the Metropolitan Police Service. And worse still, he then went through additional vetting, or so should have gone through additional vetting, and was given a gun. This man, this monster, was carrying a gun on the streets of London. There are some serious questions. There are some serious failings in relation to this particular case, and we need to review and look at what's happened. But, you know, when we start talking about lessons learned and we start talking about let's look at a new strategy, let's wait until the Office of Police Conduct have come back with their reports. Well, no, that's not good enough. We need action today. We need action tomorrow. And that's where the strength of feeling comes in. It's not good enough to say we're going to learn a lesson. No, we already know the police service failed Sarah Everard. The police service has failed every single one of those 80 women that you've just mentioned. So we need positive action now. We need somebody to take the reins and actually make that difference and make that impact starting immediately.
We've heard on this morning that change should start with a change at the top at the Met Police Force. Harriet Harman's called for Cressida Dick's resignation. We've also had comments from people, one of them, a female serving officer, saying, I work under Cressida Dick. I think she's an incredible leader. She shouldn't take the rap for it. She should be there. Her name's Jane, has tweeted, to take the reins and make the change. What do you think? Does she have to go, or is she the right person to make these urgent changes?
To rebuild the trust and confidence that policing needs, because policing is by consent in this country, to rebuild that trust and confidence, you have to set an example. And I think that Cressida has done an incredible job up till now, but she's not the right person to take this forward. And we need to show right from the top down that we are looking at the policies and procedures that failed Sarah Everard and that are failing other women every single day. And so if she needs to move on and we need a fresh set of eyes, that's right. We should, in my view, we should have a fresh set of eyes, an independent person who's going to look at all of the vetting, all of the failures, and be brave enough to turn those stones over and remove those reptiles that are living beneath them. And I think it should be a fresh set of eyes, personally. OK, so change at the top of the police force. What about the politicians involved? Bel Rabira Adi, you're a Labour MP. We have a female leader of the Met. We have a female Home Secretary. Both of those are responsible for policing. Cressida Dick in London, the Home Secretary across the country, and making women feel safe. What change should happen now, today, to take that urgent action?
Well, I do believe that Cressida Dick, her position is untenable. I do believe that she should, at this stage, resign. This is something that I called for following the vigil in Clapham Common. She failed Sarah, who was my constituent, and her police force failed women that came to the vigil that day in Clapham Common. It was an absolute disgrace the way that they were treated. But if that's not enough, the Jean-Charles de Mendes killing, the policing of the Wembley, the Euros, and all of that, there's so many different things that Cressida Dick has presided over that have been a shambles. And I really do think it's time for somebody to take accountability. And in terms of her being a woman and the Home Secretary being a woman, yes, that may look good for representation, but if their presence as a woman is not actually having a positive impact on women, be it the safety of women, be it refugee women, then what is their purpose there?
Mandu Reid, you're the leader of a Women's Equality Party. And, of course, this all stops with the situation and how safe or unsafe women feel. Those statistics that we read out at the start of this piece are just so stark. It's really, really terrifying. I wonder what you feel, where we start to try and redress this balance, because we've been talking about this for a very long time. But since Sarah Everard was killed by Wayne Couzens, 80 more women have also suffered as well.
I think we need to, as a nation, recognise the magnitude of this. And in March, I, with the Women's Equality Party, was calling for violence against women to be recognised as a national threat in the same way that terrorism is, because that would allow the resources, the funding to be deployed in a way that actually met the moment, that actually met the challenge, that actually stands a chance of making sure that our society is a place where women are safe and free. And on top of that, I think a lot of the discussion is about policing for good reason. I believe that Cressida Dick should resign as well, but policing is only part of the solution. Violence against women and girls is a function of women's inequality in society. We have to invest in preventing these crimes, not just managing them when they happen. And so that takes a whole systems, whole society approach, serious investment, and political will of the magnitude that we've not seen. I want to see political consensus around these issues. I want to see us investigate misogyny in the police forces, like the Macpherson Review, which investigated institutional racism in the Met Police. We need something similar across every single police force in this country, looking specifically at misogyny and sexism and identifying the intersections between sexism and racism, because we know that Black women have a completely different experience when dealing with police forces up and down the country. So there's a huge amount to do. It's going to take political will, and I want to see courage from this government, from the Prime Minister, from the Home Secretary, and from all all politicians, police and crime commissioners across the country. I want to see them do more. And that's what the Women's Equality Party has been calling for, because anything less is a continued betrayal of women and girls day in, day out. And we've had enough.
Yeah. Palm, if we can come to you, Palm Sandhu, for one last response, because there will be people waking up this morning looking at what's happened to Sarah Everard and questioning, you know, Wayne Couzens used his police warrant card to pull her over, to stop her, to do a false arrest as well. What is the situation if somebody finds themselves on the street being pulled over? What are our rights in terms of saying, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable with this, I want to speak to another police officer, I'm not sure you should be arresting me on your own? What can we do practically to try and protect women if they maybe find themselves in a similar situation?
I was contacted by many women yesterday morning, and girls from my own family as well. And my advice is, if you're unsure about somebody, either dial 999 immediately and say, I'm uncomfortable and I'm being stopped by somebody who's not in uniform, and who's saying he's a police officer, irrespective of whether they've got a warrant card. Insist on getting into a marked police vehicle. Do not get into unmarked police vehicles. If you can't dial 999 and you're still feeling uncomfortable, scream. Scream as loud as you can and draw attention to yourself. If that individual isn't acting lawfully, they're not going to stick around. But at the same time, police officers need to respond to women positively, and they need to rebuild that trust and confidence. So it isn't just about, you know, women protecting themselves. Police officers and society have to help women protect themselves. You can't do it on your own. But that's my immediate advice.
OK, some good practical advice there. Thank you very much. That's former Met Chief Superintendent Palm Sandhu, as well as Labour MP Belle Ribeiro Addy and Mandu Reid, who's the leader of the Women's Equality Party.